Today's topic of discussion is no contact. So I received a DM from a loyal subscriber. He said, Omar, can you please make a video on how to get my ex back? So in this video, we're going to be discussing some key points in terms of why you need to stay on no contact and why it's the most effective move to navigate all relationships. So first point is purpose. Now, what separates a man from a woman is purpose. So you guys who are watching this, all the men who are watching this, you guys are going to be actively working on your purpose every single day. It's not going to be negotiable. Now, there's a bunch of guys in society who aren't working on their purpose. They're not prioritizing purpose and mission. And they've got all this excess free time. Now, the issue is when you've got excess free time, your mind tends to wander on women. So you'll start to put more focus on and attention onto them. Now, what happens is when you start doing that, that's when you're going to start breaking no contact. And then when you break no contact, you're going to go into a whole vicious cycle again with a woman. Because you're teaching her, okay, I can show bad behavior, he's going to come running back, and I'm going to do the same thing again. Now, it's up to you guys to lead by example. You know, when a woman sees that you're working, you're grinding, you're working on yourself day by day, you know, she can't help but to respect that. She sees that this guy here has got a higher purpose. You know, the world doesn't revolve around her. You know, that's what the issue is nowadays with guys in today's society. What they'll do is they'll spend all this time focusing on that one woman, and then she's not even providing value to his life. You know, so sometimes you guys need to take a step back and look at, okay, I'm spending all this time, all this attention onto this woman, thinking about her. What value is she actually providing to my life? You know, this is what's happening with guys who are, let's say, in relationships for 5, 10 years, 15 years. They end up splitting up from their missus, from their wife. And then they DM me, they're asking me, Omar, what do I do now? And my answer is, you need to get back onto your purpose. You start grinding. You know, that comes first in life. You know, a woman doesn't want to come and support you. She's not trying to provide value to your life. She doesn't want to be a part of that journey anymore. Guess what? It's time to part ways. You know, some guys are like, oh, Omar, you know, I got to try and do something. I got to try and fix it. I got to try and, you know, get her back on the same page. You know, 9 times out of 10 with these women, the more energy you try and put into the relationship, try and tell her, you need to do this. We need to fix it. We need to try and resolve it. A lot of times, woman just ends up pulling away even more. So it's really important. Self-respect comes first in life. You know, a woman needs to have a respectful conversation with you guys. She needs to listen to you. She needs to be open to communication. You know, a bunch of these women have got like anxious avoidant type personalities, attachments. They're all over the place. They need that silence and distance. Time for them to reflect and realize what's happening. If you guys are just constantly on a woman, constantly in her face, she gets overwhelmed. It's going to have a negative impact on the relationship. So next point is respect. Now, a lot of you guys who are watching this, you guys here aren't going to have enough self-respect to walk away from a woman. There's only a few set of people who are going to be watching this who actually have the self-respect to walk away from a woman. I'm going to set her conditions, going to actually stand on your business. Because there's a bunch of guys who are fronting. I hear it time and time again. I get all these DMs, I get all these people phoning me up. They're showing all this simpy behavior. Creating fake accounts to message a girl, try and test her, trying to get their friends to try and test the girl. How pathetic do you guys have to be? That ain't somebody who's secure within themselves. And then they wonder why these women are pulling away, why these women aren't respecting them. When you're doing stuff like that, I swear, any woman that I've spoken to, tell her, either you fit my requirements, you don't fit my requirements, cool, we're not talking. And then these women, they'll linger on, sometimes for months and then years. And it's like, alright, do you fit my requirements now? Certain times they've shown disrespect previously. And then, guess what I do? I give them conditions. And then they're scratching their head, they're thinking, what's going on here? I would have thought he would have dropped the conditions by now, or he would have just moved on. It's like, nah. You've shown disrespect previously. You need to apologize for that. I don't think we're all cool in that, because we're not. Same thing with guys as well. I don't let no disrespect slide. Now somebody says XYZ, keep no contact on them as well. Throw them into that category as well. Trust me, I ain't got no time for games. We ain't playing no games over here. That's the type of mindset I'm trying to get all the guys who are watching this onto as well. This is what it is. Respect's gone right down with guys in today's society. Women don't respect them. Women think that, this guy here, he's just bluffing, or he's going to come crawling back after a week, 2 weeks, or a month. When you start slapping them with no contact for several weeks and several months, that's when it gets into their thick head that this guy here ain't playing. This guy ain't like other guys. So it's really important. You guys here stay locked on your purpose. Continue leveling yourselves up. And trust me, as time goes on, our respect's going to go up. That's what I've told you guys from previous videos. Respect equals love. Some guys, they end up getting insecure. They're thinking, a woman's going to move on. She's going to start talking to another guy and so on. As I said, if you guys really are men of value, she ain't going to be able to match with your level. She ain't going to be able to get somebody at your level. And this doesn't equate to money, status, fame, and all this other BS. Because there's a bunch of these thirsty guys who have got money and status. they're like thirsty animals. They start bombarding a woman and start suffocating a woman. That's what it is. The competition nowadays is so weak. There's very few guys who have actually worked on themselves and who are actually well-rounded as individuals. That's what I tell to guys. Certain times there's going to be periods where, let's say, you're not making money, or you're at break even, or you're just like getting by, but you're actually focusing on other areas. You're focusing on your weaknesses. You're focusing on leveling yourself up, communication, better network, increasing your deen, getting closer to God. All these areas matter. So next point is conditions. Now I must have typed this into ChatGPT, and I'll put in there, how many guys are willing to walk away from a relationship, and when a woman's shown disrespect, for her to come back into his life, he sets her conditions? How many guys do that? Now, from the estimates, it's around 10-15%. 10-15% of guys in society actually would set conditions to a woman and actually would walk away from a relationship when they've been disrespected. And then you guys wonder why relationships are breaking down in today's society. Why women don't care about guys nowadays. It's because of this. It's because guys aren't setting women conditions. Guys aren't teaching women correct behavior. These women here, they stroll through their whole life not getting checked by guys, not getting told this is right behavior, this is wrong behavior, this is good behavior, this is bad behavior. Especially these pretty type girls. They ain't got told like, you need to actually improve yourself, girl, for you to get actually a man of value. Otherwise, he ain't going to be interested. There's a lot of them are just walking around in complete delusion. They're thinking that a guy's just going to do whatever she wants. If you guys here aren't telling these women and actually showing it through your actions, through no contact, removing your attention, these women here are never going to learn. That's where it is. That's why there's such a big problem when it comes to relationships. Women be plotting and scheming with each other. They're thinking, look at this guy. He's gonna break a couple of weeks. Give him a few months. Let's play some mind games. So some of the mind games is, let's say with these girls, can be, they'll get their, let's say, friends to stalk you and watch you guys. They'll be creating fake accounts to message you from, to try and get attention from you. So some of these girls, they end up blocking you, and then they know like you can see their display photo, and then they'll put a display photo on there just to get your attention. I mean, how pathetic do you have to be? It's just like simple conditions that you set to a woman. She don't want to do that. If a woman don't want to do the conditions, she's not having a relationship. That's what it is with you guys. When you set your conditions, set these women conditions. You can't just come back into your life and be like, oh yeah, everything's so cool, everything's so rosy. Nah. I've leveled myself up. It's time for you to do the same. It's just like a lot of these guys, they work on themselves, they improve themselves, but they don't hold the woman to the same level. That's what it is. It's a massive imbalance, isn't it? When the guy's worked on himself, he's all the way up here. Woman's still all the way down here. She ain't even done nothing. She ain't even improved herself. So it's really important when you set a woman conditions with, let's say you're talking to a woman for marriage purposes, or let's say you're in a relationship, either one, and then you have a disagreement or you stop talking for a number of days and so on. Set a woman conditions. First thing is, let's say, apology. I would like an apology for how you behaved previously. You was being disrespectful, you was being rude, you wasn't communicating with me properly. I would like an apology for that. And then when they apologize, it's like, all right, cool, no worries. We're not holding no grudges. We're not holding no bad emotions. What's in the past is in the past now. That's it. We're moving forward now. Because this person here has done the conditions. But some guys here, they're thinking, I'll just let a woman back into my life and, we'll try and figure things out. She's just going to go back to her same old ways. Because it worked previously. You let her in, open arms. She ain't going to change. So that's what it is. Really important. Set these women conditions. So final point is progress. Once a woman's done the conditions, so some of my conditions is, let's say, I get a woman to apologize, I get her to flipping bake me a cake. That's my funny one. And with that, it shows gratitude, it shows appreciation, it shows this woman here actually cares. She actually loves me as a person. So when you guys set those type of conditions, it shows that you're actually making progress. Because if none of that's taking place, if you guys are not doing no contact, guys are not setting these women conditions, where's the progress? Some of these guys are in these relationships for like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Women haven't improved, they haven't elevated. This guy here has been grinding day in, day out, but he ain't gotten the woman to elevate as well. That's what happens. These people here, they end up growing apart. Certain times it can be the woman. She's leveling herself up. She's elevating, she's improving. But the guy's not doing it. Guy's just a flipping bum loser. That's why these bad boy type guys, those relationships end up fizzling out short term. Borrow my car type shit. That's why these guys, bum losers, they're like to the woman, can I just sponge off of you? Can I get you to pay my bills? Take care of me? Can I just borrow your car this weekend? Ain't got no backbone, ain't got no shame. That can never be me. Trying to borrow money off of a woman, asking a woman for handouts. No thank you. I don't ask no one for handouts. You know what the saying is, I'd rather steal than be a beggar. But obviously, you shouldn't be stealing anyway because we're promoting good morals over here. But it's just an example. It's just like, you shouldn't be getting handouts. So, just to wrap up. Purpose. Guys here need to jump back on your purpose. Start working, start grinding. Use it as motivation. Split up with a woman. She don't want to cooperate. Alright, cool. Let me start grinding. Let me start pushing forward. Let me start focusing on what matters. You know, these women here ain't going anywhere. Flipping, still going to be there, and they're going to be sat on the sidelines watching you guys. So you guys, they need to put on a show. But that don't mean that you're doing it because of her. You're doing it for yourself. You know, some of these guys, they start watching a woman. They're watching their stories. They're watching what they're up to. You guys, they need to stop doing that. You know, let the woman be. Just leave her to the sidelines. Only time you should be concerned with her is when she's actually done the conditions. The next one after that was respect. Women today don't respect men. That's why we have so many failed relationships. Women don't respect guys. They don't care about them. You know, these women here have become completely heartless. They just don't give a damn. You know, unfortunately, you guys here are going to need to match that when it comes to removing your attention. That's the only way it's going to get valued. Because these women here, they'll pretend like they're busy. They'll pretend like, oh yeah, they're doing stuff, but they're not doing anything. They see your message come through. They see your call come through. Your missed call. They're just literally just laughing and giggling. Let's see how many times this guy's going to phone me. Let's see how many times this guy's going to message me. You know, they get a little kick out of it, and they start telling their friends, oh, look at this guy. Look how many times he messaged me today. You know, as I said, there's going to be certain videos I'm going to be creating in the future where these women here who are narcissistic, who love to just play on people's emotions, trust me, trust me, I know how to deal with these women exactly. You know, you give them little breadcrumbs, send them a little DM every now and then you just pull that away, unsend your messages. And then you just hit them with no contact, randomly. Several days, several weeks. And she's thinking to herself, wow, what's going on? Like, I thought this guy would have messaged me. So, nah. She don't have as much power as she thought she did. She don't have as much influence. And then she starts to reevaluate. And then she starts to actually question herself and her actual value. And that leads to the next point, which was conditions. Then it's like, okay, I'm going to need to do these conditions. I'm going to actually need to level myself up now. You know, because this guy here, he don't seem to be budging. He ain't budging on his principles and boundaries. Because that's what it is when you set conditions. It's about principles and boundaries, which is internal masculinity. It don't get better than that. You know, that right there is what real strength and courage is. You know, women can't help but to just attach onto that. And then the final point was progress. Once you've done no contact, once you've done no contact, you've been working on your purpose, you've been grinding, you have the self-respect, and then you've been working on yourself, and then her respect's been going up, and then after that it was conditions, set her conditions, and then once she's done the conditions, then it's progress. You know, that's why it's all interlinked. So purpose, respect, conditions, and then progress. The way I map it out. You know, if you guys are following it, that's why I got the keywords there. It's about logic and reasoning. It's about following the right steps. You know, that's the only way you're going to make progress in the relationship. So, I hope that makes sense, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.